Okay. Mary Kay Lamro, Executive Director of Ridgefield Main Street. Thank you for being here for the June community meeting. I do want to say that at the request, and it has been requested for some time from some merchants and people who cannot attend, this is the second time that we are recording this meeting. The first meeting that we did last month is now up on the website. This one will be too, so thank you for that. So just to let you all know about that. Couple quick announcements just on activity in the last month. We did just have our first tailgate out of 2. It was very successful. We learned the Raptor Roll, which is the summer theme dance. Whether or not Gus is going to let us progress with what my ideas are about that, we'll see. But we had really good attendance by the players who got out there and learned the dance. We had our Ridgefield High School cheerleading squad there, and there were about 8 people in the park that joined in and did the dancing too. So the whole idea of this is the gathering place before the game. And C-Trend CEO was there right at the time we were all dancing and loved it, so he was happy. This is definitely a partnership project, and although attendance isn't exactly what we think it is on the bus, everybody was thrilled with the event. So sometimes it's just about, gathering. Next event for us is going to be Main Street Day on July 14th, Friday. It's always the second Friday in July. That, again, is going to be C-Tran, Raptors, and Shirt Space is partnering with us. They're going to be printing for free a commemorative Main Street Day t-shirt. And we'll have activities from Overlook to Davis, where the library will be celebrating their 2nd anniversary, and games and activities along the way. So that event is growing, and we're real happy with that. And also we are well on our way to Oktoberfest planning, which will be the 2nd Saturday in September. More on that later. Next week on Tuesday is an in-person meeting of the steering committee that is helping us with our strategic planning. So we have consultants coming from Seattle as well as our Washington Main Street coordinators for a tour downtown in the morning, and then we'll have a 4-hour working lunch meeting. We had 3 focus groups in the last 2 weeks, and we're just really excited about the information coming in. A lot of the people that participated in the focus groups we don't know, which was exactly our point. And a lot of this strategic planning is around what is Main Street's role as downtown develops and grows, as the city of Ridgefield develops and grows. What is the best use of our time and resources downtown and in fostering, connecting other organizations, because we have a lot in Ridgefield and we're fortunate for that. Also, really happy to announce that we had a volunteer who was interested in cleaning up the game park, and she did. She weeded, she cleaned. At the same time, we finally had the bricks replaced, which is part of that fence repair that we did to benefit the owners of both of those properties. We had new umbrellas and better umbrella stands. So the game park is ready to go and be used. That was a formerly unused space that Main Street has been working on for the last couple of years to provide a place for more outdoor dining, seating, and there's a little chess and checker board, and there are actually games there. So we do see people there during the week, quite often enjoying that space. So that was a good little project. We're grateful for Rogine Darrow, and it also sounds like she might be helping us in the summer in the form of an internship. So really happy about that. So that's all I have for now. We will get right into the presentation. Chuck Green is here, Public Works Director for the City of Ridgefield. New to that position, not new to Ridgefield, certainly our activities.
I'm going to play Nana.
You're going to play Nana. Okay.
Because I got to take notes.
Oh, good, because I brought this up in
Oh, you
case
just
I
do your
had
thing,
to.
man. You can talk with your hands, all that. Yeah.
I'm
Take
okay.
notes,
I'll
right?
turn over the meeting to
I'm okay letting my boss take notes of what I say, and then he can throw things at me if I say the wrong thing. So I'm Chuck Green, again, I'm your Public Works Director, and I'm here to talk about everybody's favorite subject, parking. So, and why are we talking about parking? So why don't we just get right into why we're talking about parking? Go ahead, Vanna. Thank you. So, the objective of this is basically we're trying to identify an adequate amount of parking for the downtown merchants, businesses, customers, deliveries, residents, and whoever else has activities in downtown Ridgefield. And so it's been 7 years since anything was studied as inventory downtown, and we know a few things have changed since then, this building being one of those. And so what we want to do is to look at what's changed, what's to come, because we know there are some things to come as well, and how do we accommodate those things to come. So a couple of you might have seen my lead engineer and me out walking the streets the last couple of weeks as we've been refreshing the inventory that was done 7 years ago. And this is what we have. So the green is the unrestricted parking. In other words, it's open, it's public, it's not delineated as much, some of it is. There's no time limits. And so, as you can see, it's pretty well covered if you look at the core of downtown and even the outer parts north of north of Mill. One thing I do want to point out is there's a little orange dashed line over by where we are here. That line is what's currently in our code, which is parking, no parking from 7:30 to 3:30. If you travel down the street, you see no parking signs all along it. So that's part of what we want to look at, what's up with that. If you look at the entire inventory that we did, in the core area, there's about 250 open spaces. In the kind of the outer area, there's another 140 spaces. We know that parking along Main and Pioneer is pretty well utilized through much of the day and definitely on weekends. So that's part of what we're trying to get a grasp on is what's there now. Now, let's look at what's not there now, and this is the no parking areas. And you can see there's a few, and most of the ones kind of on the east side of our study area are between 4th and 5th. That's because the streets are narrow, there's really nowhere to park. A couple of the streets take a dive down, there's a significant grade change, so there's just no parking allowed on those. But in some other instances, there's some no parking that was like along 3rd, that was when that was part of the pull truck delivery route. And we don't have pull trucks anymore. We have Randy trying to figure out what's going to happen next with that area. And then we have some other scattered no parking zones in the area as well. Also, you might see, it's hard to see, but there's something called a bus barn. And Ridgefield School District has something to say about that right now. There was a study a couple years ago about what happens if the school district moves their operations, what can that building be? But right now, that area is no parking, really to facilitate the operations of the Ridgefield School District maintenance crews. So why don't we go to the next one? And I knew every time I try to fix the transparency of these photos in PowerPoint, it goes back and gets very bold. So never let an engineer try to tell you that they're a PowerPoint expert. But what we're trying to do with this is starting this community discussion. As you noted in the first slide, it was called a refresh. And with all the changes, what's all to come, we want to refresh what's the plan, what we're going to do. And so what we want to do is have a discussion, and this is starting with what's the problem. And I mentioned that utilization during peak hours is one of those problems. There's a couple of intersections along Pioneer where the sight distance, trying to get out on the Pioneer, is not very good. Well, one of the ways to fix that problem is to take out the parking that's causing some of that sight distance issue. So we have a trade-off discussion to come if we're going to look at that. And then curb markings, we have in our code, we actually have a code that says what yellow dashed red and no markings mean. What we have is some areas where it might say 15 minutes on the curb, but there's no signs out there. There's areas where that paint's kind of faded away, so we think there's 15 minutes parking, but there's nothing really there saying, well, is it really? So that's part of what we want to look at, is what to do about that, how to better delineate that. So let's go into the discussion. Oh dear. All right, so what we want to do is to have a discussion about, are there any questions on the inventory that we've, in the background that I've presented? Also, are there, we'd like to brainstorm some solutions. We're not trying to come up with the solution today. What we're trying to do is get ideas, and staff can then start looking at, well, what are the trade-offs, as I mentioned about site distance? What are some of the alternatives that we can look at doing? And eventually come back to the community and you all for a further discussion of what we've seen, what's been proposed, and some of the pros and cons of each idea. And then eventually come up with the, I guess, the final proposal. If it's changes to parking layout, no parking zones, loading zones, that will need to go to council. And so we have council members here who I'm priming that we might be coming back in front of you with some ideas. With that, I think the next slide, which I hope is readable, the turtle. I don't know where that, I guess that, where is that turtle? I don't know, I just picked that slide off of our deck. But that's my information. If you want a copy of this PowerPoint, we can have it, let Mary Kay know, because she has this, and I have contact information up here as well.
We'll change the transparency before we send it.
Yeah, actually there's a PDF version where I did that, so I did figure that part out. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of an introductory thing, something to get discussion going. This was meant to be an interactive discussion, so if you have any thoughts, any questions, any ideas, Kathy?
When you put the white lines marking parking spaces, that was a great idea, because it meant people knew where the spaces were.
Mhm.
And I would like to see that extended
Okay.
farther out in all directions.
All right,
Yeah.
did you get that, Vanna?
Well, I got all of it.
Okay. Yes.
Slant parking further down, past Overlook Park, all the way down potentially. I don't know if that's.
The angle parking on the
Yeah,
west
the angle,
side?
yeah, could go all the way down, depending on,
On South Main, on your street.
yeah, to get more parking down there. Maybe.
All right.
Is there talk about parking structures?
Well, I know that, have we talked about on the one cleanup site? I don't think we've had any discussion.
No, but it's something we can definitely
Yeah.
throw into the conversation. There hasn't been anything specific, but it's definitely something we can look at.
Randy?
Besides like parking structures or surface lots, you know, you work in this field. What are other cities doing when folks are looking at their downtowns and
Mhm.
looking for options? It would be helpful to know, you know, maybe like what's the menu to choose from? What if, you know,
Mhm.
so, you know, does that angle parking, is that beneficial at all? So that might be a further, you know, maybe a further step is throwing out here's a laundry list of improvements in other downtowns or other areas they've made that are on the table.
Yeah.
One of the first things though, before we start getting to the solutions, is we need to identify what the issues are. So the first hope for this conversation is, before we get into the like, this is what I would like to see in the menu of things, you can, I mean, as an engineer will tell you, you can engineer any solution, all you need is time and money. But the question is, what are the issues you're trying to solve? So our first question in all of this, and it was on the slide behind, is really, what are the issues? What are you all seeing out there on the ground? Because you see it every day, every morning, every weekend, you see those issues. We may not. And so that's what we need to hear. We need to hear what are those issues, and then we can start going through like, okay, here's the deck of ideas that might help with those. So that's like, to start with, we'd really love to hear like, what is your experience that you're seeing here.
Gonna go this way, so we'll start with.
I know sometimes, like living downtown with the movement of the boat ramp, I know if people are parked on both sides of Pioneer and a boat's coming up from the boat ramp, it's pretty tight dependent on what type of boat they're pulling. Not that that's an easy fix, but I know sometimes it can kind of jam pack people in.
If you got a boat in a
Yeah,
semi.
yeah, if two people are trying to pass, it's a little tight in there.
And with downtown, with the waterfront, that's gonna be a lot of trucks going down with supplies when that starts breaking ground.
True, good point. Mayor?
I noticed that we have very limited ADA accessible parking downtown, so we should, I think there was only 2 spots that were, you're welcome. There's only 2 spots identified in the current inventory, 2 areas, so.
And I do want to follow up on that because as you know, we're considering consultants for our comprehensive plan update. One of those is the Transportation Capital Facilities Plan. One of the tasks that we have on their list is what's called an ADA transition plan, which is we have some inventory. What do we need to do to deal with the substandard or gaps, in this case, of ADA accessibility? So that's a good point. Yes.
Is it a
Councilor.
potential for off-site parking for business owners, employees, thus preserving those spots downtown for customers?
And
Okay.
same thing, I think, with event volunteers, we have the same problem where we have volunteers come in and take bulk parking, and then no one can get down there for the events.
Councilor.
One of the things I see is parking here for this facility with a lot of city vehicles here taking those spots, and then there's no place for everybody to park.
This facility being the rack?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a solution for it somewhere, I don't know, but I just noticed that it's usually clear full other than the ADAs. The ADAs are usually empty and there's no.
So are you saying, is it both city and school districts? There is parking
Well,
designated for the
see if
fleet.
there is a solution for that.
Okay.
I've been contacted by people concerned, and this is more about the waterfront, where are all the boaters gonna park their boating trailers?
All right, Mayor Pro Tem.
With the splash pad coming online later this summer, maybe figure out where a designated parking area, I know it will be seasonal most off, but let's figure out the splash pad, because that's gonna cause more people coming down to use it.
Okay, you've had your hand up for a while.
Thanks.
so-
Just seconding a couple of things other people have said about possibly more diagonal parking next to Overlook Park or on that First Ave, near the old church and Center Market, and our businesses are on that street as well. It's already a concern, and with the splash pad going in, anytime there's any event, we can't have parking for ourselves, let alone our people, our clients who are coming in, who a lot of times we're medical providers, so they have, they can't walk long distances, so parking at some of the more public lots, they can't go 2 blocks or anything like that. It's also a one-way street, and on a daily basis, people are driving the wrong way down that one-way street. It's so possibly more signage or something. And then ADA parking was also on our list too. There's 1 handicap spot just in the area that we saw. I heard somebody else say that there's only 2 downtown. And then,
yeah, I want to add on that we're very concerned because cars are coming the wrong way. The splash pads.
Coming the wrong way, north on
They're
South Main,
coming
is that what's-
north.
South Main? Yeah.
Every day.
No, on First Ave,
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Coming back up.
when you're on Sargent, there are the 2 signs that say do not enter. Obviously.
They forgot the do not park?
Don't see that. And don't and I thought at first, it's just, old people. But it's not. I've looked in the cars.
Yeah.
And we try to, if we're out there, go the wrong way, and a lot of times they just ignore us. So my concern is you get that splash pad, and you have kids running back and forth, cars coming the wrong way, that intersection at Pioneer and Main is a disaster. And, you know, I started renting, in January of 2019, and at that point it was, you know, there were cars there, but I could always find a space, my clients could always find a space. And then the food trucks came on board, and they're great, but the clients, the customers, they park along, for the most part, on Main, because they can't find spaces on Pioneer. So now we're competing with that, the splash pad. I know the whiskey bar is gonna be opening up. And then I heard something about an ice cream truck, and I thought, I don't know how we can accommodate
And there
all
have
this
occasionally
traffic.
been reserved, or the center market has been putting up signs that say for market parking only, and I don't know if that's an option, but then it also takes away from our parking, and so that's another concern that we have as well.
All right, yeah.
Is there any thoughts about expanding Second Place and putting parking in the back along that alley?
Okay, that's something we can look into. Yeah.
What about the empty land across from the splash pad? Couldn't that be like possibly made into a parking lot?
So, I don't know what that land is, Steve. Do you-
It's a privately owned property that was purchased by a couple that is looking to do a vertically integrated mixed use at some point, but hasn't come forward with a proposal.
All right.
Also, you know, the Overlake Market on Saturdays, you guys had it in Davis Park. Seems like more space back there.
Yes. Great.
And there's
Yes.
so much
Brilliant.
congestion I agree, I've seen so much congestion on Pioneer and Main with boats. I mean, there's this big boat trying to cross the road, and it's all, you know, it's just like, if they had a turn, there's no way they could. There's cars everywhere.
Well, they no longer have to turn, because they
Yeah,
just go
that's
straight.
true,
so,
but
yeah. Got it.
it's, they're still big boats,
Mhm.
and the width, you know.
Understood. I've been there with the truck.
Isn't it
I've
cool that
actually
we have
straight
so many-
mirrors.
I know, right? You're like, oh boy.
That's a good thing.
Right?
That's good.
It's so cool.
Chuck, I think possibly too, may consider time limits on, next to Overlook Park on South Main. And eliminate people pulling in there and then staying all day, and tying up those spots. I don't have a suggestion of how much time,
Mhm.
but, I have trouble with Rob coming there and parking his rig and then getting off on his bike.
It's gonna be a fun meeting tonight, isn't it?
Yeah, tongue in cheek on that one. I just had to
So-
use an example.
Is Pioneer on that list as well? Because you mentioned Maine and you mentioned Overlook, but I haven't heard about that. And what in the parking business, it's called turnover, and it's actually, some of you might know it as merchants, but is Pioneer one of those where it has an idea about people parking for longer periods of time? Or is it mostly Maine?
Less than Main.
All right.
A lot of people use, excuse me, I didn't get recognized. A lot of people use the food carts, but they're usually fairly short. And yes, if the people
Mhm.
park there, then that takes that up, or the same way with the corner market or the hardware store. Maybe time limits would be good on those spaces too, something to look at.
All right, Mary Kay, you have your hand up.
Well, I hesitate even bringing this up because I'm about to give myself an assignment. But you know, the Main Street Way is not to recreate the wheel. I'm curious as to our size city and downtown, sort of where we are in the evolution of how big of a problem it is in reality and what other cities our size are doing. Are we ahead? Are we behind? I mean, it feels like we're playing catch up, but that's how that's been the atmosphere for some time. It might be helpful, I'm about to offer. You know, we're gonna be with Main Street people in October at Revitalize WA, and there also is a network of executive directors. I'm curious if we could get some information, even from the Main Street perspective, as to sort of where we are and what some ideas might
As
be.
part of coming up with solutions in this, that would be amazing to actually hear from Lord knows we do it in our world, and I'm sure you all do it, is we talk to our peers, and we like, hey, what's your experience been? Like, what are you doing? What did you see? So yeah, if there are other cities or other Main Street programs that have experience with these kinds of issues and these kind of growing pains, and like we were saying, these are good problems to have, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, these are the problems of people coming to downtown, which is what we've all been working for. This is good, but now what? Now what do you do? So like, yeah, we'd love to get, I'm sure we can integrate that, but
So
sorry.
one of the things, you saw maps of kind of parking supply. What you didn't see is parking use. We call it parking utilization. And so and I've done a number of these parking studies in my consultant life, but what we would do is go out and do the parking utilization study. So we would look at like a typical afternoon, an evening, a weekend, and see how often are these parking spaces used. And if they get above 75–80%, it's almost like they're all used when you're driving down the street. So we could do something like that as a follow-up to help with this solution. Is that something that you think would be helpful?
Well, and I think one of the challenges is when you live downtown and people park in front of your house, there's not only the businesses concerned with how do I get my clients down here, but there's also the concern of the residents. And part of living in a downtown area is a parking issue, right? I don't know if there's any way to forecast what downtown's gonna look like, because it seems like we're always playing catch up. It's like the schools, right? Like we have all the kids and we need the schools. Is there a way to look at, hey, our parking need in 5 to 10 years, if we build something now, a parking structure, for example, we're gonna use it in 10 years. But is there a way to get funding before you need the need? Or is it always the catch up? Is the question. I mean, we're gonna need a parking structure at some point.
Yeah.
I'm a newer business to downtown, so if this is old news, then just shush me out, but is there any option for reserved parking for business owners, especially if there are time limits of 15 minutes or something like that, but we have people who will definitely be there for an hour to 2 hours, if there's any option for something like that, that's definitely a concern as
So
well.
we can definitely look into.
Mhm.
I think sometimes we've done for special events, haven't we, have reserved parking for?
We have for public events, just because it's a public street, but it's something we can definitely look into.
Okay, thank you.
I'll go here.
I was
and
gonna
then-
say, I appreciate everyone saying ADA because that's my world, but ramps, and I talked to Steve, I didn't even know we were talking about this morning, Steve, when I
Oh, you didn't? I was like, good time.
I had no idea. I knew he was coming, but ramp, I have a ramp and that has to go down, and there's very limited space in downtown. I have to literally use a police station or a support building because there's no ramp parking.
All right.
I think we should look at I hear a lot of good ideas about maybe time limits and stuff like that, but we should look at enforcement too, because if you have rules and you don't enforce them, then people are like, well, they never do anything anyways, I'm just gonna park here. So then my other thought also we should look at is, like, let's say across from the Sportsman or even in front of Seasons, those are very popular spaces that people come in, have coffee maybe for an hour or eat lunch. That lot, that's a gravel lot, it's gonna be cleaned up soon, and then there's gonna be building going on there probably of some sort. Don't know what that looks like yet. But if you had meters there, and let's say this contractor gotta come in to build a new building or clean up the site, if there's meters there, then they purchase a bag like other cities have that go over there that say, hey, we paid a fee, now this meter is bagged, the parking meter. I don't know, we should look at also parking meters. And I know we're a small city and that might not be a good idea amongst everybody, but I think we should look at enforcement, parking meters, all of those kinds of tools that help regulate parking.
All right.
The people that go to that first Saturday, the vendors, Judy was there from 7:30 to 2:30. Now, she had to move her car, however many, and all the other vendors in there. You couldn't do that. The parade at 4th of July, I live up Hillhurst in front by the Methodist Church. People park up there to go to the parade. How do you do? The best thing about Ridgefield is when you come down here and it's crowded, you can park almost on any street. When you put meters up and no parking, you'll kill it.
All right, understood. Andy?
Well, Scott Hughes isn't here, but I've heard it enough from him, so I'm gonna channel my inner Scott Hughes. And I would say for most of the streets, absolutely, with the exception of Pioneer and Main. The freeing up Pioneer and Main for like 1 hour parking for customers would, it clearly, both clear designation and legitimate enforcement to make people behave. I think Pioneer and Main are different than the others, and so what that looks like. There's meters. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but like 1 hour parking on Pioneer and Main is something I've heard from them a lot. The other one is or 2 hour or whatever, because people have a long lunch. And then the other one is loading zones.
Loading zones.
He talks a lot about loading zones. Many
Mhm.
people have seen, he has to get out there with his orange cones when the truck comes, and then the corner market now has taken to putting up the sandwich boards pretty much along the entire length of their property, saying all those spaces are theirs. So, yeah.
Anybody else have issues with trying to get goods into your store and not being able to get there? Is it just in that area, kind of Pioneer, Maine, that's the big issue?
Well, those are the businesses right now that are
Right.
having the deliveries, but as it grows
Mhm.
and there's more retail downtown, it's gonna continue to enhance that challenge.
Kristen's talked about the garbage truck. It's front load, not side load, and is that a difference?
Well, I think it's just volume. So Waste Connections, we don't have the volume in downtown to have a dumpster truck more than once a week. I'm the only one probably really generating the most, but they're only front load, and we have a challenge because we're on a gravel road too, so they're heavy, they have to move them. It's fine in the summer, but in the winter, we hear every week. So, in future planning, as a developer, I would look at how we would organize our garbage, and that's going to reduce the type of tenants that you can have if you can only have residential sized garbage cans. So if it's an ongoing problem for other developers in the future, or just organizing that, once there's more demand, then there's gonna be other additional options with Waste Connections, but currently, there's a handful of dumpsters, and it's really expensive to drive your garbage truck all the way up here, and 7 minutes away from the freeway. So, as Pioneer fills in, then they'll have more opportunities, and we could do 2 times a week or something. But until then, it's something that as a development process on the approvals is just determining how that garbage access is gonna happen. And so it's just something to be conscientious of. And I think it's the same, there's a lot of people who park at Overlook. They come in, they park, and then they turn around and go the wrong way. So an immediate response to the incorrect one-way driving is possibly having more visibility on those parking spaces at the park, because it's people who are coming in, they turn, they don't realize, and they turn back around and leave, and they're probably coming to the park. So they're coming in for a minute, or they run to the store, and then they just leave, and they're not familiar with downtown.
So maybe like signage as to how to get back to Pioneer once they're on that street, would that help?
Yeah, or just one way.
Okay.
Like, cause there's no one-way signage of
But
those
it
parking
stops
spaces.
sign.
Yeah, so it doesn't say that this is a one-way street.
Right.
It's only at the
Yeah, like
beginning
once
of
you're-
the
yeah,
road.
once you're on the road, there's no signage on it.
Counselor?
Yeah, as a public works director and the paint crew, you could paint arrows on the street, which would,
Oh.
to one way.
That's a real good way, yes.
So, I've seen that in town.
Done it.
With little kids.
Just an idea.
Yeah.
That seems like the cheapest way, just paint some arrows.
Yes.
Yeah, it must be some kind of optical illusion, because you do, exactly, people will park, and then they look at the end of the street and think, well, it doesn't go anywhere. So then they turn around and go the wrong way.
I'll
I
go.
was gonna say, I was actually guilty of that yesterday. And I think it's because normally when I'm downtown, I am walking. I'm never driving when I'm down there. And so I took my dad actually to see Renee's property, because I saw it during the wine walk, and I was like, oh, we're back to under construction. So, awesome. But I was like, way to go, way to get that open for the wine walk. And then I was like, okay, and off we go. And then not until I was like, oh, and then it's like the point of no return where you're like, do I go or do I not go? So I think the suggestion of marking on the ground is great. I also would concur with turning left on Pioneer. I always feel like I'm like, okay, hopefully we make it through. So the sight lines is a big concern, so I think that's great that you guys are looking at that.
All right.
Well, somebody raised the concern is that gravel parking lot is gonna go away in the future. Do we know this already, or?
Yes.
So is there plans
Privately
to
owned.
supplement that? Because I see a lot of people park there, especially when Sportsman Bar has a band or something. It's always full. How are we gonna compensate?
So 2 things with that, because I can speak to that just because I've been kind of the lead as far as negotiating that piece of it. So the first part of your question is yes, that gravel parking lot will be going away this year. It has been 15 years plus of conversation, negotiation, and otherwise to get a contract with the state to clean up what we know as park laundry, which was a dry cleaner that was dumping chemicals into the ground for many, many, many years. There is a cleanup action plan that is finalized. It will be going to public comment from the Department of Ecology very soon. So you'll see a 30-day comment period for that. Council has already signed a contract, a consent decree with the Department of Ecology for them to help pay for it. But it's a 2-year cleanup process. You moonscape. You excavate down. You put in some, you drop chemicals in that actually it's microbes that destroy all of the bad chemicals, and then you monitor it over time. So that is actually finally going to happen. There was a lot of work done, and why it has to happen is because there was a lot of work done to say that until that happens, the rest of the downtown isn't going to be able to truly reach its potential, because you're never going to be able to actually get the rents that you would need and be able to get the people coming down, because you have this kind of blighted area, and there's actually 2 of them, of that 3 if you count bus barn, but not really. So that is going away. As far as what are we replacing with, the first step of that was taking out the old community development building in Davis Park. So when that building came out, council said, let's keep that as parking, as off-street parking for the library and for downtown as a whole. So that was the first step of it, was creating that off-street parking that did not exist prior to that. Now it's just outside the core. It's one of those, how do you get people to actually use it as opposed to just driving around in the core area there. But then the next steps for that, that's what we're now looking at, is okay, we've got that piece of it, now what? What else do we need to do? So we're working on that. But as far as identifying the current condition on that, yes, that will be starting up. The cleanup will actually get underway this year.
So for the Davis
Hold on,
Park,
hold on.
I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to know what's happening to the old police department, because there's parking there.
So the police station building that the Ridgefield Police Department is moving out of right now, and there will be a ribbon cutting on their new space in the middle of the month. That old space, the city council has not made a determination yet as to what to do with the existing building. There have been a lot of conversations about leasing it out to businesses. There's a lot of conversation, but nothing has been finalized. So that is part of all of our conversation is, okay, how does that play into it? And so it's an unanswered question on that.
If you could pull up that no parking map again.
Yeah, if I can figure out how to do that.
Just, I think it's just arrow up.
Is it arrow up? And you want to go to the map?
The no parking map.
Here you go.
So it's hard to see, but they're on North Main on the east side where the police building is now, and soon to be former police building, there is pretty measurable no parking zone along there. So that's something that could be taken a look at. Davis Park, by the way, if you aren't familiar, is up there, thank you. And so one thing I guess we could look at is if that's currently a municipal parking lot, maybe we could put some information signs to tell people how to get there.
One actually has charging stations that are free to the public to use as well, so.
So Mary Kay, I wanted to get a time check, so I didn't want to over.
9:30 is when we're done, so.
So you got 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay, so fire away. What else do we have?
I
Yes.
think for the large events, you guys do a really great job of, because there are large parking lots, like on the weekend when events happen here at the RAC, at the elementary school. So kind of channeling people to those parking areas and then having a hayride or whatever to get them down to the different areas. Because I feel like for the able-bodied or, you know, people that, like, I'm happy to walk too, you know, so I think that's great. And I think that that's kind of maybe another piece of it is how much walking are people willing to do, and how much convenience do you need for some of those businesses that, you know, you just want to park right in front and you don't have time to, you know, make the jaunt down, or the weather is poor, you know, there's a couple of factors that play into that.
So a special event shuttle hayride sounds pretty cool. I think they had that big paddle.
Yeah, I think the city kind of does that, or Main Street, or whomever does the events, there's some good transportation.
That's
There's a significant parking lot behind the post office. Would that space ever be available to be open on special events, or is?
All right.
I saw on the Port's Facebook page that they have that strip of land where the Pacific Wood Treaties workers used to park their cars. I think, is it, can you take your cursor on the map?
It's on Railroad.
Yeah, that.
Randy could probably
So,
speak a little bit.
How many spots could be, you know, do we need to look at maybe paving that and signage to get down there, or to offer that up? Because right now it's just grass, I think. And when people pull down there, they're like, well, there's no signage, and, or, you know, am I supposed to park on that grass? Is it legitimate? Yeah, right. So we should look at that.
Yeah, I can just speak to that quick. So that strip of land down at Railroad Avenue, we measured it, and if you just park cars nose in, you could get about 70 cars side by side. It is a bit of a, it's kind of like the parking lot at Davis Park. It's a bit of a hike for folks coming to the downtown, but of course it's available. We're offering it up, and so by all means, tell your friends, anyone, they're welcome to park down there. What could we do to make it better? We could do some signage, maybe some, you know, like some A-boards out on Main there, and that just says, you know, parking, you know, additional parking with arrows down to that strip of Portland. So.
But my thought was also, somebody had mentioned when the volunteers come for big events, you know, to volunteer, that could be like a designated parking area for the volunteers. Just the idea.
Yes.
I think it's 3rd Avenue along the bus barn. There's a significant number of potential spaces there that are all painted yellow now.
Actually, on both sides of Third.
They go
next to
from
City
Main
Hall.
all the way past RCB on both sides. Could that ever be opened?
In front of the old fire station.
Yeah, they're
Yes.
originally
Yeah.
known
Yeah.
because it's the bus barn
Yeah.
and the fire station. It's
Yeah,
now
if you
no
notice,
longer-
there is some red still in there.
And you're saying that was from previous code because of the bus barn and the fire station, but it could be updated from.
And also the pole trucks, because remember those really long loads,
They
they
would
swing
turn,
really
yeah.
wide in the back. And so when you have a truck, a really long pole, that's why this corner, that's why there's no parking going way out here. And then also a third, see that, there's an area way up there, this is like that, somebody's garden up here. There's an area up here where there's also no parking, because again, really long pull trucks swing in the corner. So that's no longer applicable anymore either.
Really quick, I do want to remind everyone, if you don't live kind of walkable off of Hillhurst or Heron to come into town on all of our great trails, but C-Train has the Current, and it's really, really good option, especially if you just have to pop down and help out for a minute and then head back. That is something that, you know, we have a really awesome opportunity in our community that maybe other people don't have. So just to keep that in mind or share with your customers.
All right. Are you getting information from C-Train on the Current? 'Cause
Yeah, it's on our downtown map.
okay, good.
Which is right here.
There's 4 different ones.
Available
Perfect.
to everybody for free.
We could probably put stickers in everyone's windows.
I just, you know, just a general comment too on kind of the opportunity we have here. A part of, you know, Main Street's mission is working on Otis Alley and, you know, expanding that inner core, encouraging walkability and discovering that back part. The city talks a lot about trails and walking. We are an active community. Every time I see people walking up and down the overpass, it just warms my heart. There is an element here also to encourage walkability and this idea of this atmosphere of downtown being enlarged. And while we can really pay attention to specifically supporting merchants, and I think we do take a good, we have some good options for larger events, it's kind of okay to encourage people walking around downtown. You know, we can do it gently. I think signage will help a lot. We have people coming to downtown now that have never been here before. Simple parking signs, I think, would do a ton. You talk about, you know, Davis Park not being a part of that downtown core. We just got 5 new flower baskets on 3rd going, and including one on that corner of Davis Park. So we are working on making this more visible. We have 2 very successful businesses at the end on the other side of Davis Park. So I think we really have an opportunity to encourage people to be mobile like we encourage in their lifestyle when they're enjoying downtown.
And with the comprehensive plan, we know more businesses are gonna come down here. So the parking's, it's not gonna go away, it's gonna get exacerbated, so. I propose a trolley connecting Discovery Ridge and downtown, and park at Rosales, come down, and then, or park at the port and go back and forth, or a C-tram that just makes Pioneer, like, hop on, go, and then we enhance everything together.
That's a great idea. Seattle downtown has that, from their waterfront to somewhere near Chinatown area.
You can hop on.
Gamblers, you can hop on anytime.
Same with downtown Portland, used to.
Yeah.
They used to have a trolley that went from Lloyd Center down and
Yep.
around. Now it's a streetcar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Get
There's
some
always horse
sponsors.
and buggy too.
I like the hayride idea. I think that sounds
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know about
Well-
code.
Yeah.
Hayride doesn't work when it's raining.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Is your poncho and your goggles? Have fun.
Yeah.
How's Vanna's hand doing all these notes?
Excellent. We've got a ton of great ideas, kind of issues to be addressing. We've got about 5 minutes though to make sure that we at least for this portion of our conversation, are getting all of those issues identified so that we can start identifying ideas that may help address them. So like, if there are any other issues that you are all seeing, things that you want to make sure that we at city staff are actually integrating into our analysis, now's a great time to do that. And if you think of something later, you know where to find us. Please do reach out to us and get us additionally, like, oh, I didn't think of this, but I wanted to add it. You know where to find us, and we will absolutely add it into our analysis.
I just wanted to mention one more thing on Maine. A client of mine said last week that she was approached by a couple of panhandlers, or whatever you want, people asking for money. And they were out, I guess, for quite a while, and I don't know if the police are aware of that. And there's also a car where you can tell the person's living in their car, and they were parked in one of the slanted spaces. And he would move, and then he would come back and park somewhere else. And this went on for about a week, and I thought I was gonna call, and then I didn't see him. But it is becoming an issue. I don't know if other businesses have encountered that.
That little park down there is a problem.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's a big problem.
One,
Yeah.
one
In
thing that
terms
the,
of, like, what specifically have you seen?
Oh, the activities down there.
I had to
Like-
stop in the police station because there was a person screaming that they were gonna kill me and my son when we were walking by there.
Yeah, it's just,
so just one thing the port can offer, we've got a couple spaces where a lot of folks can park. Unfortunately, they're not where anyone wants to park. One's that Railroad Avenue strip that's a bit far. The other one is what we're calling our overflow parking area down at next to the boat launch, that rocked in gravel area. And we are making that available. So if you've got an event, I know for Oktoberfest, we're gonna do that. We're gonna free up, that space is gonna be available, and we're gonna do probably a golf cart shuttle or two, shuttling people back and forth from Oktoberfest down to the overflow parking area. Another one, I think we've talked to Renee about her facility doing something like that because, you know, meet some of the parking challenges there. So same thing, if either of those places, either the overflow parking area at the boat launch or the Railroad Avenue strip, if you want to make arrangements with the port to use those spaces, do some sort of golf cart shuttle, I'd say be creative. You know, we're happy to work with you. It's a little farther out, but you know, possibly something could be worked out.
Well, and at the Parade of Homes, I don't know where they get their golf carts, but the high school kids run those for fundraisers.
Yeah, the boosters.
Yeah, like the boosters and stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity to bring some other opportunities in for some of the kids and the schools, and getting people to, I think people are happy to walk, but sometimes they can't up that big hill.
Right.
So I think that, like, I mean, so involving the entire community, I think is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, the same issues with my daughter with her wheelchair is the same one that parents have with strollers, right? Like, so anytime you make accessibility, it helps parents with strollers, it helps everybody in mobility issues.
Well, and having been a parent and pushing strollers around, I know trying to get across where there's no ramp is an issue, so that's.
It's a ride. Come on.
Yes, Councilor.
One other trying to drive, so everyone needs to watch out.
One other comment I got is maybe a signage of overflow parking at the end of the Main Street down to the port, 2/10 of a mile. And so people know that they can go down there and then walk back. Just something so they know how far it is, and I encourage them, like we talked earlier, to exercise a little bit and come back to town.
So I should point
Instead of
out,
driving out.
we've been talking about signage and pavement markings. We don't need to go to council for that type of action. That's stuff that is the city engineer, public works director, I can authorize doing. So we'll definitely take a look at that for the short term, because that's something we can move forward with.
Good.
All right.
Anything else? Oh, gosh.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Really good opportunity to voice some concerns, and I appreciate the participation and the information, and that you know, I think it's good that it can be an ongoing conversation. I love that this is going to be available to other community members and merchants who couldn't be here today. So that's a point of getting this recorded. So great. Does anybody have any announcements really quick that need to be made? We just have a couple of minutes.
Just real quick, Chris Poppert from I coordinate the Family Daycare Center for the school district, and just as our school district is just kind of gearing up to have school out, we're planning our back to school bash community. So Compassion 360 and the Family Resource Center plan a big bash to provide free school supplies and backpacks to students in our district, and that is going to be August 12th. We partner now with Saturday Market. It was a great event last year at Overlook Park. Apparently parking's going to be an issue. We gave out 400 bags of school supplies last year, 400 backpacks, so just something to mark your calendar with. I'm already getting donations coming in, and we were reliant on those donations from community to be able to make this event happen. So mark your calendar, August 12th. It's also the day that we've got Green Bag Food Drive, so my volunteers are spread really thin that day, so if you're available and want to help hand out some stuff, I appreciate that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you next. Anybody else? Randy.
Yeah, just really quick, there was a Port Commission workshop scheduled for Friday on the waterfront redevelopment. Our consultant got sick, so we've had to postpone their presentation for a couple of weeks. So it's not Friday, so anyone that was looking forward to that. Also, the school district's surplus sale will be at the end of this month here at the rack in the gym. For the first time ever, it is a combined Port of Ridgefield and school district surplus sale, because we are cleaning house at the port. I get rid of a ton of stuff, so we're going to be having things in that as well. So that's always a great sale. That'll be at the end of this month.
Great.